My stepson pushed me at the Christmas table. This seat belongs to my dad. Get out. I fell to the ground in front of the whole family. But what he didn't know was that very night, I would change his life forever. When he woke up the next morning, I never thought my life would collapse over a chair. Not just any chair, my chair. The one I had sat in every Christmas for over 15 years. The one I paid for. The one I repaired when one of the legs cracked. The one my late wife used to joke was my throne, because I always sat there carving the turkey. But that night, none of that mattered, because according to my stepson, it was never mine to begin with. Let me go back a bit. My name is Daniel. I'm 52 years old. I married my wife, Laura, when her son Ethan was just 9. His biological father had left when he was a toddler, vanished without child support, without birthdays, without even a goodbye. I stepped in quietly. No grand speeches. No, I'm your new dad now nonsense. I paid the bills. I showed up. I taught him how to ride a bike, how to shave, how to drive. I sat through his school plays and his sulky teenage years. I helped him get into college. And when Laura passed away 3 years ago after a sudden illness, I stayed. I didn't have to. Ethan was already an adult, 23. But Laura's house became our house. Her family became my family. At least, that's what I thought. Christmas that year was supposed to be simple. A small gathering. Laura's sister, her husband, their kids, Ethan, and me. I cooked all day. Turkey, stuffing, potatoes, the same recipes Laura loved. I even used her old tablecloth, still faintly smelling like lavender detergent. When it was time to eat, I pulled out my chair. That's when Ethan stood up. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't look angry, which somehow made it worse. That seat belongs to my dad, he said, staring straight at me. Get out. I laughed at first. I honestly thought it was a joke. Then he shoved the chair forward. I lost my balance. At my age, you don't fall gracefully. I hit the floor hard, my elbows scraping against the wood, the room going silent except for the clatter of silverware. No one helped me up. Laura's sister froze. Her husband stared at his plate. The kids looked confused. Ethan didn't look at me. He sat down, right in the chair. This is where my real father should have been, he said calmly. And you've been pretending long enough. Something inside me cracked. But I didn't yell. I didn't argue. I didn't even cry. I stood up slowly, brushed myself off, and said only one thing. Understood. Then I walked out. I didn't take my coat. Didn't take my phone charger. Didn't even take the leftovers I cooked. I drove aimlessly for hours, replaying every memory, every sacrifice, every moment I told myself I was doing the right thing. And somewhere around midnight, sitting alone in my car, I realized something terrifying. Ethan wasn't wrong. That chair did belong to his father, just not in the way he thought. Because what Ethan never knew, what no one in that room knew, was that his father hadn't disappeared. He had been erased. And that night, Christmas night, I finally decided to stop keeping the secret. By morning, everything would change. I didn't go home that night. I couldn't. Instead, I parked outside a closed grocery store and sat in my car until my hands stopped shaking. The Christmas lights across the street blinked on and off, cheerful and cruel at the same time. Ethan's words kept replaying in my head. This seat belongs to my dad. For years, I had told myself I didn't need the title. I didn't need gratitude. I didn't need recognition. I just needed peace. But peace is a lie you tell yourself when you're afraid of the truth. Around 2 a.m., I finally drove to a cheap motel on the edge of town. The kind with flickering neon signs and thin walls. I paid in cash, sat on the bed, and stared at my hands. That's when I made the call. A call I hadn't made in over 20 years. The phone rang longer than I expected. I almost hung up. Then a voice answered. Yeah. Older. Rougher. But unmistakable. Mark, I said quietly. It's Daniel. There was a long silence. Then a sharp breath. You've got some nerve, he said. Mark. Ethan's biological father. The man who abandoned his family. Or, at least, that's the story Ethan grew up hearing. I didn't call to fight, I said. I called because Ethan knows. Another silence. He laughed bitterly. No, he said. He thinks he knows. I closed my eyes. You want to tell him? I asked. Or should I? His voice dropped. You promised, he said. You promised Laura. And that name, her name, cut deeper than any insult Ethan had thrown at me. I kept that promise, I said. For 20 years. I raised your son. I protected him from the truth. But tonight, he pushed me to the floor in front of everyone. Mark didn't say anything. I'm done protecting lies, I continued. If you don't talk to him, I will. Fine, Mark finally said. But don't expect him to thank you. I hung up and sat there, heart pounding. Because the truth wasn't simple. Mark didn't leave Ethan. He was forced out. Laura never wanted Ethan to know. She said it would destroy him. That he needed a clean story. A villain. An absence. But absence is easier to hate than betrayal. The next morning, my phone exploded with missed calls. Laura's sister. Her husband. Even Ethan. I didn't answer. Instead, I went home. My home. The house Laura and I bought together. The one my name was still on. The one Ethan had already started calling my mom's house. I unlocked the door and stepped inside. Something was wrong. The hallway was empty. Too empty. No juice. No yakits. No framed photos on the wall. Then I saw it. On the dining table. The table where I had been humiliated the night before. Lay a single envelope. My name was written on it. Inside was a typed letter. Daniel, Ethan doesn't feel comfortable with you here anymore. It's best if you take some time away. We'll discuss the house later. Signed by Laura's sister. Not Ethan. Not a lawyer. Her. That's when I understood. The chair wasn't the real issue. They were already erasing me. And I knew exactly how to stop it. I didn't scream. I didn't tear the letter apart. I sat down at the table and read it again. Slowly. Like reading a death certificate. We'll discuss the house later. Later meant never. Later meant lawyers. Later meant they were already planning my exit. I stood up and walked through the house. Every room felt smaller than it used to. Laura's favorite mug was gone. The photo of our wedding day had disappeared from the living room shelf. Even the spare bedroom, the one Ethan used whenever he visited, was empty. They hadn't asked me to leave. They were preparing to pretend I had never been there. That's when anger finally hit. Not loud anger. Cold anger. The kind that makes you very calm and very dangerous. I went to the study and opened the bottom drawer of my desk. The one I hadn't touched since Laura died. Inside was a thin black folder. Documents. Not emotional. Not dramatic. Just facts. Laura and I had planned for everything. We had a will. A trust. A contingency plan in case something happened to one of us. And something had happened. Laura left the house to me. Not temporarily. Not until Ethan feels ready. Not to her sister. To me. Ethan was mentioned in the will. A generous trust fund. Enough to finish college and start a life. But the house. The house was mine. I laughed out loud. Not because it was funny. Because for the first time since Laura's funeral, I realized I still existed on paper. I scanned the documents and emailed them to my lawyer. Then I sent one short message to Laura's sister. We need to talk. Today. She replied almost immediately. About what? I stared at the screen, then typed. About who owns the house. 3 dots appeared, then disappeared. No reply. An hour later, there was a knock at the door. Not Ethan. 2 police officers. My heart didn't race. It sank. Sir, one of them said carefully, we received a call about a domestic disturbance. We were told you were refusing to leave the property. I almost smiled. They want me gone before I even argue. I said. Smart. I invited the officers inside and calmly showed them the documents. The deed. The will. The trust. They read in silence. One officer cleared his throat. Sir, he said, turning to his partner, this is a civil matter. I walked them to the door. As they left, a car pulled up behind them. Ethan. He stepped out slowly, eyes red, jaw tight. For the first time, he looked unsure. I didn't call the cops, he said immediately. That was my aunt. I nodded. She always was efficient. We stood there in silence, the house between us like a battlefield. You embarrassed me, he finally said, in front of my family. I met his eyes. You pushed a 52-year-old man to the ground on Christmas, I replied. And you still think this is about you. His face hardened. My dad should be here, he said. You took his place. No, I said quietly. I protected you from him. That stopped him. What do you mean? He asked. I took a breath. The man you think abandoned you, I said. Never left. Ethan frowned. You're lying. I'm not. I said. And tomorrow, you're going to hear the truth from him. Ethan laughed, sharp and disbelieving. Yeah, he said. Then why hasn't he shown up in 23 years? Because Laura begged me to erase him. But I didn't say that. Not yet. Instead, I said something else. Because if he had, I replied, you wouldn't be standing here alive the way you are now. Ethan stared at me, and for the first time, he looked scared. Ethan didn't sleep that night. I know this because at 3:17 a.m., my phone lit up with a message. Stop messing with my head. If you're lying, I swear. I didn't respond. Some truths need silence before they land. The next morning, my lawyer called. Daniel, she said carefully, I assume you're aware that Laura's sister contacted me. I assumed she would, I replied. She's claiming Laura was confused when she signed the will, my lawyer continued. That she was under emotional distress. I almost laughed. Laura had been many things near the end. Confused wasn't one of them. File the response, I said, and prepare the full medical record. There was a pause. You ready to go public with this? She asked. Yes, I said. They forced my hand. After the call, I made another one. This time, I didn't hesitate. Mark, I said when he answered. It's time. He exhaled slowly. I was hoping you'd say that, he replied. We agreed to meet that afternoon, neutral ground. A quiet diner off the highway, far from family, memories, and raised voices. When Mark walked in, I almost didn't recognize him. Older, heavier, tired, but his eyes were the same. The eyes Ethan had. I never wanted this, Mark said as he sat down. I want to stay away. You didn't, I corrected him. You were pushed out. Mark looked at the table. Laura was scared, he said. She thought if Ethan knew the truth, he'd hate her. She was right, I said quietly. Mark swallowed. He wasn't a good man back then, Mark admitted. Angry. Reckless. I drank too much. Said things I can't take back. I nodded. But I never hit her, he said firmly. And I never abandoned my son. So tell me, I said, leaning forward, what actually happened? Mark's jaw tightened. Laura didn't leave me, he said. She ran. I felt a chill. She found out something, he continued. Something about her sister. About money. About what they planned to do with Ethan. I froze. What do you mean? I asked. Mark looked up. Her sister didn't want me around, he said. I was in the way. The pieces started shifting. Laura told me she was going to expose it. Mark said, take Ethan and disappear if she had to. So why didn't she? I asked. Mark's voice dropped. Because she got sick. The diner felt suddenly too loud. And when she got sick, Mark continued. Her sister stepped in, took control, handled the paperwork, the finances, the narrative. A narrative. That word echoed. I thought of the letter on my table. The police. The sudden confidence. She's doing the same thing now, I said slowly. Just with me. Mark nodded. She always cleans up after, he said. Erases what doesn't fit. I paid the bill and stood up. Are you ready to tell Ethan everything? I asked. Mark hesitated. Not everything, he said. Not yet. That worried me. There's more, he admitted. Something Laura never told you. My chest tightened. What? I asked. Mark met my eyes. Ethan's not the only one who was lied to, he said. And in that moment, I realized this story wasn't just about a chair. It was about ownership, of truth, of family, of names. And someone had been rewriting all of it for decades. I didn't tell Ethan about the diner. Not yet. Some truths are too heavy to drop without warning. And Ethan was already cracking. Instead, I waited. That afternoon, Laura's sister showed up at the house with a smile that didn't reach her eyes and a folder tucked under her arm. Daniel, she said sweetly, as if Christmas never happened. We need to be realistic. I stepped aside and let her in. She didn't sit. She paced. This situation is unhealthy for Ethan, she continued. He's grieving. He feels displaced. And frankly, so do we. We? I asked. The family, she said quickly. Laura's family. I folded my arms. You mean your family? I replied. Because legally, this house isn't part of it. Her smile slipped for half a second. We can make this easy, she said, opening the folder. A buyout. You leave quietly. No drama. I glanced at the papers. The offer was insulting. You already tried the police, I said calmly. This is plan B. Her tone hardened. You were never his father, she snapped. You were a replacement. And now that Ethan's old enough to see that, you should do the decent thing. I leaned closer. The decent thing, I said slowly, would have been not rewriting Laura's life while she was dying. Her eyes widened. You have no idea what you're talking about, she said sharply. Oh, I think I'm starting to, I replied. She stood up straight. If you push this, she warned, you'll destroy what little relationship you have left with Ethan. I looked her dead in the eye. That relationship is already gone, I said. Because of you. She left without another word. That evening, Ethan finally came back to the house. He looked exhausted, angry, lost. I talked to my aunt, he said the moment he walked in. She told me everything. I raised an eyebrow. Did she? I asked. She said you're trying to steal the house, he continued. That you manipulated my mom when she was sick. I nodded slowly. And did she tell you about the trust fund? I asked. He hesitated. No, he admitted. Did she tell you I could have sold this house the day after your mom died? I continued. But I didn't, because I wanted you to feel like you still had a home. His jaw tightened. You didn't do that for me, he said. You did it for control. I sighed. Sit down, I said. He didn't want to, but he did. I pulled out the black folder and slid it across the table. Read, I said. He flipped through the documents in silence. His hand shook slightly. She left it to you? He whispered. The house. Yes, I said. That doesn't make you my father, he snapped. No, I agreed. But it does mean I didn't steal anything. He stood up abruptly. Then why did you lie about my dad? He demanded. Why did you let me believe he abandoned me? I looked at him for a long moment. Because your mother asked me to, I said. And because the truth was worse. He laughed bitterly. There's nothing worse than abandonment, he said. I stood up too. Tomorrow, I said quietly. You're meeting him. Ethan froze. I don't want to, he said immediately. You need to, I replied. Because the man you hate isn't the man you think. He shook his head. If this is some kind of manipulation, then walk away after, I interrupted. But hear him. Ethan stared at me, torn between rage and curiosity. Finally, he said, one meeting. He turned to leave, then stopped at the doorway. If you're lying, he said, I'll never forgive you. I didn't answer, because I wasn't worried about forgiveness anymore. I was worried about what would happen when Ethan learned who really took his father away. We met the next day. Not at my house. Not at Ethan's apartment. Neutral ground. A small park near the river. Quiet, cold, almost empty. Winter had stripped the trees bare, and the sky looked like it couldn't decide whether to snow or break open. Ethan arrived first. He stood with his hands in his jacket pockets, pacing, jaw clenched so tight I thought his teeth might crack. You set this up, he said when he saw me. So say whatever you need to say and get it over with. I didn't respond, because that's when Mark appeared. Ethan didn't recognize him at first. He was just another middle-aged man in a worn coat, moving slowly, like someone who had learned not to expect much from life. Then Mark stopped a few feet away, and Ethan froze. They stared at each other. I saw it instantly. The same eyes, the same way they tilted their head when confused or defensive. Ethan saw it too. What the hell is this? Ethan muttered. Mark swallowed hard. Hi, son, he said. Ethan took a step back, as if physically struck. No, he said. No, you don't get to say that. I know, Mark replied quietly. I don't deserve it. Ethan turned to me, furious. You promised me the truth, he said. This is just some stranger trying to. I'm not. Mark interrupted. And I can prove it. He reached into his coat and pulled out a folded photograph. Old, creased. He held it out with trembling fingers. Ethan hesitated, then took it. It was a picture of a much younger Mark holding a baby. Holding him. Ethan stared at it like it might explode. This doesn't mean anything, he said, but his voice cracked. I never left you, Mark said. I was pushed out. That's what deadbeats always say. Ethan snapped. Mark nodded slowly. You're right, he said. So hate me if you want. But hate me for who I was, not for what you were told. Ethan looked away. His breathing was uneven now. Why didn't you fight harder? He asked. Why didn't you come back? Mark's eyes filled. Because I was threatened, he said. And because your mother begged me not to. Ethan spun toward me. You knew, he said. You knew all this time. I knew enough, I replied. And I chose to protect you. By lying to me, he shouted. Yes, I said firmly. Because the truth would have shattered your family. Ethan laughed, sharp, broken. What family, he said. You mean my aunt? The one trying to throw you out. Mark stiffened. Aunt? He repeated. I felt my stomach tighten. You didn't tell him? Mark asked me quietly. I shook my head. Ethan looked between us. Tell me what? He demanded. Mark closed his eyes. Your aunt didn't just control the story, he said. She controlled the money. Ethan frowned. What money? Mark looked at me. Laura never told him, he said. No, Garubia. She didn't. Ethan's voice dropped. Told me what? I took a breath. The life insurance, I said. The account your mother had before she got sick. Ethan's face went pale. She left everything to the family, he whispered. No, I said. She didn't. Mark spoke before I could stop him. She left it to you, he said. And your aunt was the executor. Silence. Ethan stared at the ground. Then slowly, he looked up. You're saying, he said carefully, that the woman telling me you're the enemy might have been stealing from me? I didn't answer. I didn't need to, because the look on Ethan's face told me everything. This wasn't anger anymore. This was realization. And realization is far more dangerous. Ethan didn't say another word at the park. He walked away. No jilling. No accusations. That scared me more than his anger ever had. Mark exhaled shakily. I shouldn't have said that, he murmured. I rushed it. No, I said quietly. He needed to hear it. Mark looked at me. He's going to dig, he said. And when he does, he'll hate whoever lied the most. I know, I replied. That night, Ethan didn't come home. Instead, I received an email from my lawyer. Subject, urgent, executor review. My heart sank as I opened it. Daniel, she wrote, I ran a preliminary review of the estate distributions. There are irregularities. Irregularities. A polite word for theft. Large withdrawals, she continued. Transfers made shortly after Laura's diagnosis. Signed under power of attorney. I stared at the screen. Power of attorney. Laura had trusted her sister with everything while she was sick, and her sister had used that trust like a weapon. The next morning, Ethan showed up unannounced. He looked different. Not angry. Focused. I went to the bank, he said flatly. I didn't interrupt. They wouldn't tell me much, he continued. But they confirmed there were accounts I'd never heard of. I nodded. And I asked. And my aunt was the only one with access, he said. While my mom was in chemo. He swallowed. She told me there was nothing left, he said. That mom spent it all on treatment. I felt a wave of anger so strong I had to sit down. Ethan paced. I called her, he said. She cried. Said you manipulated me. Said you were poisoning me against the family. I looked up. And what did you say? I asked. Ethan stopped pacing. I told her I want a full accounting, he said. Every dollar. My chest tightened. And she said, I asked. She said I'm being ungrateful, he replied. That my mother would be ashamed of me. I closed my eyes. Laura would have been furious. Ethan looked at me. I don't trust anyone anymore, he said. Not you. Not her. Not him. That's fair, I said. He hesitated. But I trust documents, he added. I almost smiled. Good, I said. Because we have plenty. I handed him a folder. Copies of the will, trust details, lawyer correspondence. He flipped through them slowly. Then he stopped. What's this? He asked. I leaned in. A handwritten note. Laura's handwriting. Dated 3 weeks before she passed. Ethan's hands shook as he read it. If you're reading this, the note said, it means I wasn't brave enough to say it out loud. Ethan's breath hitched. I'm sorry, the letter continued. I tried to protect you, but I chose the wrong way. Tears streamed down his face. I didn't abandon your father, Laura wrote. I was afraid of my sister. Ethan covered his mouth. She knew, he whispered. Yes, I said. And she trusted you'd find the truth when you were ready. He looked up at me, eyes red. So what now? He asked. I didn't hesitate. Now, I said. We stopped letting her rewrite history. Outside, my phone buzzed. A message from Laura's sister. We need to talk. Immediately. I showed Ethan. He looked at the screen, then back at me. Let's, he said. And for the first time since Christmas, we were on the same side. We didn't call her. We showed up. Laura's sister lived in a quiet, respectable neighborhood. Trimmed lawns, tasteful decorations, the kind of place where scandals were supposed to stay buried. She opened the door with a practiced smile that faded the moment she saw Ethan standing beside me. "Oh," she said softly, "you're here too." "Yes," Ethan replied. "And this time, you're not speaking for me." She stepped aside, letting us in. The house smelled like coffee and something sweet, cinnamon, maybe normal. Too normal. We sat at her dining table. Not the chair. A different table. But power still hung in the air. "I assume this is about money," she said calmly. Ethan placed the folder on the table. "It's about truth," he replied. "And money is just how you hit it." Her jaw tightened. "You're being manipulated," she said, looking straight at me. "Your mother was sick. Vulnerable." Ethan slammed his hand on the table. "Don't," he snapped. "You don't get to use her illness as an excuse anymore." Silence. She leaned back slowly. "You have no idea how much I did for that woman," she said. "How much I sacrificed." Ethan laughed bitterly. "You mean how much you took?" She stood up. "Everything I did was for this family," she said sharply. "And for you?" "For me?" Ethan asked. "Then why did I have to find out from bank clerks that my name was on accounts I never touched?" Her eyes flickered. "Just for a moment. That was enough." "You forged signatures," Ethan said quietly. "Didn't you?" She scoffed. "I had power of attorney." "That's not permission," Ethan replied. "That's responsibility." She turned to me. "You filled his head with this," she hissed. "No," I said calmly. "You did for years." She laughed suddenly. "You think you're heroes?" she said. "You think exposing this will fix anything?" Ethan stood. "It fixes me," he said. "And that's enough." Her face hardened. "If you push this," she warned, "you'll destroy the family's reputation." Ethan met her gaze. "Good," he said. "Maybe it deserves to be destroyed." She stared at him, stunned. Then she said something that made my blood run cold. "You're not even sure who your real father is," she said. "Ask your mother." The room froze. Ethan slowly turned toward me. "What did she mean?" he asked. I felt my heart sink. Because this was the part Laura never wanted anyone to say out loud. "Not here," I said quickly. But it was too late. Laura's sister smiled. "There were questions," she said softly. Questions Laura didn't want answered. Ethan's hand shook. "Is that true?" he whispered. I looked at him, at the boy I raised, at the man standing in front of me. There were doubts, I admitted, but they were resolved. She laughed. "By you," she sneered. "Or by the man who disappeared?" Ethan backed away from the table. "I need proof," he said. "I need everything." She shrugged. "Then take it to court," she said, "and see what survives." As we left, Ethan didn't say a word. In the car, his phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. "It's Mark. There's something I need to tell you." Tonight. Ethan stared at the screen, then at me. And I knew. The next truth wouldn't just change how he saw his aunt. It would change how he saw himself. Ethan didn't go home after that. He drove. No destination. No music. Just empty roads and a head full of questions he never thought he'd have to ask. Who am I? Who lied? Who am I supposed to hate? Around 11 p.m., he stopped outside a small, dimly lit bar on the outskirts of town. The kind of place you go when you don't want to be recognized. Mark was already there, sitting alone in a booth, hands wrapped around a glass he hadn't touched. When Ethan walked in, Mark stood up immediately, then hesitated, unsure if he was allowed to. "You came," Mark said quietly. "I didn't come for you," Ethan replied. "I came for answers." They sat. For a long moment, neither spoke. Finally, Ethan broke the silence. "She said you might not even be my father," he said flatly. Mark closed his eyes. "I was afraid she'd use that," he admitted. "So it's true?" Ethan snapped. "There's doubt." Mark shook his head. "No," he said firmly. There was doubt. Ethan clenched his fists. "When?" he asked. "When your mother got pregnant," Mark replied. "We were going through a bad period. I won't lie about that." Ethan stared at the table. "But," Mark continued, "I wanted to be sure. Not because I didn't want you, but because I didn't want to live a lie." Ethan looked up. "And?" he asked. Mark reached into his jacket and pulled out a folded document. Yellowed. Old. A paternity test. "I am your father," Mark said softly. There was never a question after this. Ethan took the paper with shaking hands. The dates matched. The names matched. Everything matched. So why? Ethan asked through clenched teeth. Did she tell me otherwise? Mark swallowed. Because fear makes people cruel, he said. And because your aunt knew doubt was a weapon. Ethan leaned back, laughing, but there was no humor in it. So she poisoned everyone, he said. Slowly, carefully. Mark nodded. She convinced your mother I was dangerous, he said. That you'd be better off without me. Ethan's voice cracked. And you just let her. Mark's eyes filled with tears. No, he whispered. I tried to fight. Ethan looked at him sharply. How? He demanded. Mark took a shaky breath. I went to court, he said. For visitation. For shared custody. Ethan froze. What? He whispered. Your mother was already sick, Mark continued. She didn't tell you. Didn't tell Daniel. I felt a cold wave wash over me as Ethan told me this later. She didn't want to drag you through it, Mark said. And your aunt, she handled the paperwork. Ethan's heart pounded. And the judge? He asked. Mark's jaw tightened. The judge never saw the full file, he said. Key documents were missing. Ethan's hands shook violently now. You're saying, he whispered, she sabotaged your custody case. Mark nodded. And then, he added quietly, your mother got worse. Silence swallowed the booth. So she won. Ethan said. She erased you. Mark nodded again. And Daniel? Ethan asked. He stepped in. Mark replied. Did what I couldn't. Ethan covered his face with his hands. For years, he muttered, I hated the wrong man. Mark reached across the table, then stopped himself. I don't want forgiveness, he said. I just want you to know the truth. Ethan looked up. I don't know what to do with it, he admitted. Mark leaned back. Then start by asking the question she's afraid of, he said. Ethan frowned. What question, he asked. Mark's voice dropped. Where the money went, he said. And who helped her hide it? That night, Ethan didn't sleep. He sat in his apartment, documents spread across the table, replaying conversations, noticing gaps, remembering moments that suddenly made sense. The control, the pressure, the subtle rewrites. By morning, he had made a decision. He showed up at my house just after sunrise. I want to press charges, he said. I looked at him carefully. Against your aunt? I asked. Yes, he replied. And anyone who helped her. I nodded slowly. That won't be clean, I warned. It will get ugly. Ethan didn't hesitate. She made it ugly years ago, he said. I'm just finishing it. Outside, my phone buzzed again. Another message from Laura's sister. You think you've won, but you have no idea what you're risking. I showed it to Ethan. He read it once, then smiled, cold, controlled. Good, he said. Neither did she. The first letter arrived 3 days later. Certified mail. Heavy paper. Threatening language dressed up as professionalism. A cease and desist. Laura's sister was accusing me of manipulation, coercion, and intentional emotional distress. She demanded we stop contacting her, stop spreading false narratives, and immediately vacate the house pending further legal review. Ethan read it twice. Then he laughed. That's it, he said. That's her move. It's a warning shot, I replied. She's scared, and scared people make mistakes. Our lawyer moved fast. Subpoenas, bank records, a forensic accountant. The deeper we dug, the uglier it became. Money moved in patterns that didn't belong to grief or necessity, but to planning. Withdrawals just under reporting limits. Accounts opened in Ethan's name without his knowledge. Transfers routed through shell accounts tied to Laura's sister's husband. Ethan stared at the spreadsheet in silence. She stole from me, he whispered, while telling me you were the problem. I put a hand on his shoulder. She didn't just steal money, I said. She stole your anger. Pointed it where she wanted. That's when the second letter came. This one wasn't legal. It was personal. A handwritten note slipped under the door. You think you're smart. You think you understand what family means. Laura would be ashamed of both of you. Ethan crumpled it in his fist. She keeps using her, he said through clenched teeth. She keeps hiding behind her name. Our lawyer advised restraint. No contact, she said. Let the evidence speak. But Laura's sister didn't stop. She called extended family. Friends. Old neighbors. By the end of the week, whispers followed us everywhere. That poor woman, they said. Her husband manipulated her son. Greedy stepfather. Ethan heard it all. And for the first time, he didn't flinch. "Let them talk," he said. "They're late." The hearing date was set. Not a full trial, yet. A preliminary review. Enough to force disclosure. The night before the hearing, Ethan knocked on my door. "I need to ask you something," he said quietly. "Anything," I replied. "If you had known how this would end," he asked, "would you still have stayed?" I didn't answer right away. I thought about the chair, the floor, the humiliation. "I would," I said finally, "because leaving would have meant letting her win." He nodded. Then he said something that surprised me. "I want to change my name." I looked at him. "What?" I asked. "My last name," he clarified. "I don't want hers anymore." My heart tightened. "And Mark?" I asked carefully. He shook his head. "This isn't about replacing one lie with another," he said. "It's about choosing what's real." The morning of the hearing, Laura's sister walked into the courtroom confident. Too confident. She smiled at Ethan. He didn't smile back. The judge listened. Quietly, carefully, then asked for the records. And as the numbers appeared on the screen, the room changed. Questions became sharp. Eyes narrowed. Her lawyer stopped interrupting. Finally, the judge leaned forward. "Ms. Harris," he said, "can you explain these transfers?" She opened her mouth, closed it, then said the one thing she shouldn't have. "I did what I had to," she snapped. "For the family." The judge's expression hardened. "We'll see," he said, "because from where I'm sitting, this looks like abuse of trust." Ethan exhaled slowly. Outside the courtroom, Laura's sister hissed at me as she passed. "You took everything from me," she said. I looked at her. "No, Olivia, you did." And as she walked away, I knew this wasn't over. Because when people like her lose control, they don't go quietly. The fallout didn't come all at once. It came in waves. The first wave was legal. Charges were filed. Accounts were frozen. Laura's sister lost access to everything she had controlled for years. Her husband claimed ignorance. The bank didn't believe him. Neither did the court. What she had called family management was officially labeled what it really was: financial exploitation under power of attorney. The second wave was social. Family members stopped calling Ethan. Friends who once nodded politely suddenly avoided eye contact. The whispers changed direction. "Did you hear? It wasn't him. It was her." Reputation is fragile when it's built on lies. But the third wave, that was the hardest one. Ethan sat at the kitchen table one evening, staring at nothing. "She loved me," he said suddenly. "My mom loved me." I nodded. "She did," I said. "And she made mistakes." He clenched his jaw. "She chose fear," he whispered, "and I paid for it." I didn't argue, because loving someone doesn't mean they didn't hurt you. A week later, Ethan met Mark again. Not at a bar, not at a park, at the cemetery. They stood side by side in front of Laura's grave, neither knowing what to say. Finally, Mark spoke. "I don't want to replace anyone," he said. "I just want a chance to be honest." Ethan nodded. "I don't know what you are to me yet," he replied, "but I know what you're not." Mark waited. "You're not a ghost," Ethan said, "and you're not a villain." That was enough. As for me, I packed my things. Not because I was forced, because I chose to. The house didn't feel like a victory. It felt like a chapter that had run its course. On my last night there, Ethan knocked on my door. "I don't want you to leave," he said quietly. I looked at him. "You don't need me the way you used to," I replied. He shook his head. "I need you differently now," he said. He handed me an envelope. Inside was a legal document. He had officially changed his last name. Not to Mark's, not to his aunt's, but he had added mine as a middle name. "I didn't lose a father," he said. "I lost the story I was told." My throat tightened. "You didn't take my chair," he continued. "You took my anger and showed me where it really belonged." Months later, the case closed. Laura's sister accepted a plea deal. No jail time, but restitution. Every stolen dollar returned. The headlines were brief. The damage wasn't. Ethan moved forward. Slowly, deliberately. He rebuilt relationships on his terms. He kept some people out. Others back in. Mark stayed in his life, cautiously, respectfully. And me? I bought a small place by the river. Quiet. Simple. On Christmas morning, there was a knock on my door. Ethan stood there, holding a bag of groceries. "I was wondering," he said awkwardly, "if you wanted to come over for dinner." I smiled. "Only if you choose the seat," I replied. He laughed, and, for the first time in years, So did I. Because revenge isn't always loud. It isn't always cruel. Sometimes, revenge is simply refusing to disappear and taking back your name.